All right, we'd like to welcome everyone to our backpack to briefcase info session. If you've joined us before on this during the summer, we used to call it the Power Up series, and so it might still be listed as that. But we feel like backpack to briefcase is fitting example for this, especially starting in our fall recruiting. For those that are now on campus or doing classes virtually, this is a big recruiting time for a lot of companies. And so we want to do the most that we can to really prepare you to get that job, to get those careers. Whether you're a freshman or a senior, that preparation is key. So we're really excited to invite Scott Wilcox with us today. And I'm just going to give a little introduction of Scott, and he can go into more details on what he does. And he's going to talk to us a lot about networking today, especially in the time of COVID 19 and what that might look like for you. So, Scott Wilcox, he is currently a specialized risk analyst at JP Morgan Chase and Company in New York. Scott was born and raised on a farm in Syracuse, Utah, and he had dreams of success in business from an early age, participating in DECA and student government in high school. At the Huntsman School of Business, Scott was involved in many organizations, including a Huntsman Scholar Program and Business Ambassadors. His favorite Huntsman memory was traveling to Vietnam, Thailand, and China for a month, and with the Global Learning Experience program. During the summer before his junior year, he performed an internship with Stratafund Solutions, LLC, in Salt Lake City as a tax and a compliance analyst. The following summer, he interned at JP Morgan Chase in New York City as a risk analyst, for which he was offered a full time position after graduating. And Scott did graduate with a triple major undergraduate degree in statistics, finance, and economics. So Scott currently lives in the Upper West Side of Manhattan and continues working for JP Morgan. In his spare time, he enjoys reading, baking, and Broadway. He loves to work with Huntsman students in achieving their career goals. And we love working with Scott, and we're just so thrilled to have you, Scott. Welcome.
Thanks, Nate. I'm really excited to be here. It's great to work with the students at the Huntsman School. So thank you for the invite.
Yeah, well, the time is now yours. Tell us a little bit about networking.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did want to just kind of start with a little bit more background to my story, a little bit more on how I got to the position I'm currently in. So as Nate mentioned, I graduated a couple of years ago from the Huntsman School of Business. And I actually started by getting an internship at JP Morgan Chase over the summer before my senior year. And kind of how that happened is kind of a funny story. All finance students at the Huntsman School are probably familiar with the famous Paul Feldstead. And when I was meeting with Paul once, kind of talking about plans after I graduated, he was helping me kind of make a list of different companies I might be interested in and so forth. And he mentioned one as JP Morgan Chase, but neither of us really had any like connections or really knew anyone that had worked there before. But he was like, good company, like might want to look into it. I did look into it, submitted a few like cold call applications, and by some miracle was selected for a higher view. And from then on went to do an in-person interview in New York, and again miraculously somehow got the job. But it was a really cool experience. That was like my first real experience of networking with people that were not just directly tied to the Huntsman School. I was networking with these big time executive people that had been in industry 10, 20, 30 years in New York City. And they were people that I had never met, and they didn't know anyone that I knew. So it was really an interesting and eye-opening experience. And then from that internship, I did get a full-time offer to go back. So I have been at JP Morgan now for about a year and a half. And it's really been a cool experience, especially from the networking perspective. I think like a lot of students in college kind of think of like, oh, on LinkedIn I have 500 connections, I've got a lot of friends, like I have a really broad network, right? And it's really when you kind of get into like the real world of either finance, marketing, whatever your specialty is, that you realize just how small your network is. And it was a really eye-opening experience for me to get on the team that I'm on at JP Morgan. JP Morgan's very serious about diversity. Diversity is a huge thing at our company. And I didn't understand how serious that was until I got on the team that I'm on. And on a team of about 30 people, there's 4 of us that are white Americans. So, it's a very, very diverse team. People from throughout Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, like just all of these different areas, people that have done so many different things. And so it's been fun to broaden my network by, getting to meet all of them as well, and then getting to meet their connections and so forth. So I did prepare a couple of things I think are big tips for Huntsman school students, especially in the current environment of COVID-19, where everything has become virtual. I understand it can be really difficult to navigate kind of how things are working for the students. If it makes the students feel any better, most professionals also don't know what we're doing when it comes to navigating the current environment. So we're all kind of trying to figure it out. As people are saying now, it's like trying to fly the plane while you're building it and stuff. So like we're all trying to figure it out too. So don't worry if you're concerned how you broaden your network, how you do these virtual interviews and different things like that. So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk to students about is the amazing tool called LinkedIn. Hopefully, all of the students I'm talking to are familiar with LinkedIn. If you're not, set up an appointment immediately with your career services advisor, and kind of ask about what LinkedIn is. A good way to think about it is it's kind of like Facebook for professionals. If you're not familiar with it, it's more of a social networking site, but a good place for you to broaden your professional network. There's an infrastructure in LinkedIn that also has like job databases. It's a very common thing for companies to post jobs, internships, different things on LinkedIn. So a great tool for people to use. Your profile is kind of like a resume almost, but in addition to that, you can put on like awards and different, like service activities and different things you've been involved in. So like my first big thing I'd say with LinkedIn is everyone needs a LinkedIn profile. You may not find every job that you get in the future from LinkedIn. You may kind of feel like it's a hindrance sometimes, but in today's world, it is a great tool for everyone to have a LinkedIn profile. Most of the applications that I submitted when I was in college actually asked like, what is your LinkedIn URL address? And it was like a required field. So they almost expected you to have a LinkedIn profile. So I think it's a big deal for everyone to get one of those. You'll find that when you get your LinkedIn profile, you're going to start getting all of these invitations. They call them connections instead of like friends on Facebook. They're connections on LinkedIn. You'll find you're getting a ton of invitations to connect from random people you don't even know. I would say that, definitely use your best judgment, but if you're uncomfortable accepting every connection, you don't need to feel like you have to accept every connection. What I've found is a lot of people will actually send messages along with the invitation that says, hey, my name's so and so, I work for this company, found your profile, I'd love to chat, type of thing. So definitely like approach it however it makes you feel comfortable, but it's a great opportunity to, expand your network and meet people from interesting companies, interesting places, interesting backgrounds. One thing I'll say on LinkedIn profiles that I've seen a lot of students do is try to overload it with information about themselves. And there's definitely a fine line that you kind of want to tread of what you put on your LinkedIn profile. My best practice that I tell people is generally it should be the most recent things that have happened in your life. I would say between 5 to 10 years. That may, differ from other professionals. So definitely take what I say with a grain of salt, whatever works best for you. But I would say make sure everything you put on your LinkedIn profile needs to add value to whatever you're doing. So if you used to run a lemonade stand in front of your house when you were a kid, awesome, that's exciting. We've all done it. Probably don't put it on your LinkedIn profile. It's sad, but I've seen stuff similar to that on LinkedIn profiles. So, but another thing to approach with your LinkedIn profile is that it really needs to be treated like a resume. We talk about how our resumes are like constantly, being changed and refreshed over time and so forth. And I would approach a LinkedIn profile much the same way that, refresh it over time. The things that are kind of stale or maybe are now obsolete in today's market, look at how you can refresh that and make it more modernized and applicable to today's market. And finally, one last tip with LinkedIn, and I actually learned this my senior year, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, so I thought I would just add it in here. There's actually a feature on LinkedIn where you can customize the URL address to go to your profile, and I didn't know about that. Apparently a bunch of people did. But like, for example, on my resume, I have the link for my LinkedIn profile, and it used to be like linkedin.com/SGFD579 asterisk, like camel, all of these weird things in there, and so it was nice to like be able to customize that so that it just says linkedin.com/Scott C. Wilcox. So a much cleaner thing. That's just kind of a tip that I found from LinkedIn. So yeah, I really want to stress that LinkedIn's a great tool. Really encourage all students to look into it, create your profiles, make them professional, make them pop. It'll be a great tool for you in the future as you approach networking. So other ways of networking, obviously in today's environment, everything has kind of gone virtual. So everything is being done over Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams and so forth. So one thing I would say is when you're approaching virtual networking, you're like, you can't really study to be a good networker virtually. You kind of just have to jump into the weeds. So if you've been kind of scared about like, is this professional going to think it's weird that I'm sending them an email for like a Skype chat? Like, get over it and just jump into the weeds and do it. The more that you try networking over like Zoom, basically over a camera, you're going to find it's a lot easier than you think. It's been really cool in today's environment to see how large companies have adjusted their recruiting when it comes to trying to do everything virtually. And I think as students at the Huntsman School of Business, you are at a huge advantage as compared to the other Ivy League schools. If I take JP Morgan, for instance, I know that for our summer internships for next summer, generally there may be 1 or 2 online info sessions that anyone can join. And then they do dozens and dozens of in-person on-campus info sessions. But these campuses are the Harvards, Yales, Stanford, and so forth. However, in today's environment where everything is virtual, I've noticed that all of those JP Morgan info sessions are now open to everyone. It's not a Harvard only online info session. So that being said, I would say take advantage of these things. Look into the different companies that you're interested in. Guaranteed, all of the large companies are going to have some type of online info session. And a lot of these are going to be a Zoom call very similar to this. It'll be a call with a recruiter and maybe 50 students, and they'll offer, the capability to like raise your hand and ask a question or type in a question and they'll answer it. So I would say definitely take advantage of those. I wish that I would have done that kind of when I was preparing for jobs, especially at JP Morgan. Those info sessions will give you an idea of what the company is, kind of how like the internship is set up, and then more specifically like what you would actually be doing and how you can prepare for it. And that'll be huge in helping you prepare for like the interviews and so forth as well. Another big part of networking, aside from the info sessions and preparing for jobs, is just the awesome alumni you guys have from the Huntsman School. I'm biased because I am an alumnus, but we have incredible alumni that all they want to do is help you guys succeed the way that they have. So please use us. Please email us, message us on LinkedIn. Please reach out to us and say, hey, I just want to set up a time to have a virtual chat with you. I want to understand like what you do, the company that you work for, how you got there, different tips like that. I've talked with a bunch of students over the last several weeks. Hopefully some of them are watching this too. And occasionally they'll come in and be like, I know that like, your time is so sensitive. I'm so sorry if this is like inconvenient or anything like that. You guys are never an inconvenience to us. Like, promise you, you are never an inconvenience. Please reach out. We are happy to help. And one thing I would add on, whenever you do meet with us, please ask the question like, who else can I reach out to? Who else did you go to school with? Did you graduate with that you know at work that would be interesting to talk to? That was a tip I learned recently from a director at JP Morgan. And he said that it's something he implements in every single one of his coffee chats he has with people, is he always asks like, who are other people I should reach out to? And that's a huge thing. We will be happy to connect you with other colleagues, classmates, excuse me, anyone else that we think could be of help to you. But please use us. We are happy to help. So aside from networking, what has also become a virtual, necessity is interviewing. So interviewing has become mainly over, virtual channels. And to be honest, I don't know if even with the end of COVID, if that will change very much. For instance, when I was interviewing for JP Morgan, I had one virtual interview and then an in-person interview. And for that in-person interview, they flew me to New York, paid for a hotel, paid for transportation, paid for lunch, the whole bit. Obviously, JP Morgan can save a lot of money if they just do all of that virtually. So one thing that I would say is whenever you're approaching an internship or job opportunity, I would just plan for everything to be virtual. So prepare as if it's going to be virtual. If it's not, great, because I think we would all prefer to interview in person, but prepare as if everything was going to be virtual. There are kind of two different virtual interview channels that I've seen, one of which is like a recorded interview. The most common we've seen is HireVue. So this is where, you're going to be on camera, you're going to be given a question. You're not speaking to a live person, it's just being recorded and the live person will watch it later. You'll get this question and you'll give your response, it records and then sends. I have talked to a lot of students that either have never heard of HireVue or have never done one before. That is certainly not a problem because it's relatively a new thing, maybe not super common. But one tip I would give to all students is that don't let that HireVue that you're making to send to Goldman Sachs be the first HireVue you've ever done. Okay. just like everything, whether it's piano or skateboarding or cooking, you need to practice in order to perfect the skill, right? And so the Career Service Center actually has a great um, practice hire view that they can provide to students. At least I hope that's still there. Okay, good. I see nods from Nate. Please reach out to your advisor and ask them for that practice hire view. I would say that 90% of you students are going to go through a hire view at some point. So it's just best to start preparing for it now. It definitely can be a little awkward, especially when you're not like actively speaking back and forth between someone. So best to start that, as soon as possible. But HireVue is a great tool. All of the large companies use it, or at least something very similar to HireVue. JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, I know both use it. Yeah, definitely a good thing for students to kind of get on and start using. The other channel of virtual interviews is, a live interview, but over Skype or Zoom. So something kind of similar to this, where you are speaking to a live person, but they're not in the room with you. And something I would say here is, again, similar to the HireVue, just try to start practicing. I would hope that the Huntsman School is planning some kind of like opportunities for students to practice virtual interviewing, but students can also try to do that in unofficial channels, whether you're doing that with an advisor or with a professor or just a friend. But become comfortable with sharing your stories over a camera, with listening and answering questions over a camera. I think we all would like to approach it and say, oh, it's just going to be the same as like a live in-person thing. And I definitely noticed like the first month of me working on the job over Zoom, it's much harder to understand the questions being asked and to listen and not get distracted and stuff when you're not just facing the person right in front of you and talking to them. So I would say that another big tip is just, get used to kind of the virtual talking over a camera. One big thing, I want everyone to pay attention to this. One big thing is, just because you are interviewing or networking or working or whatever at home is no excuse to behave like you are doing that at home. That's a big thing, and I see Nate laughing, and I hope everyone's laughing. But the sad thing is I have been on virtual coffee chats and virtual meetings and stuff with people, and they're at home, so they're dressed in tank tops and they're in a super messy room behind them, and like whatever. And just remember, like, just because you're at home, you're still in a professional setting. So when you're doing your hire views, your virtual networking, your virtual interviews, and so forth, make sure you have like a conservative background. It doesn't need to be, a plain color. As you can see, that's not my background. But make sure it's a conservative, somewhat clean space. Dress as if you were meeting that person in person. So I mean, with virtual networking, maybe business casual or a little bit less is fine. But especially for like your interviews and hire views, it should be, full suit, white shirt, tie, or, shirt and tie, the whole thing. Dress as if you were interviewing with people in person. And then finally, removing things from your background that, can be a distraction and stuff. I know that all sounds, like common sense, but it's not. So take it from a professional who has seen a lot over Zoom, sadly. But yeah, that's a big thing. So those are kind of my 3 big points. I have a couple of other tips I wanted to offer students, especially as it comes to like job hunting and stuff. I think a lot of people are under the impression no one's hiring during, coronavirus and during quarantine. True, fewer people may be hiring, but there are definitely still open opportunities. For example, I was just on our JP Morgan site for hiring like internships and students and stuff, and there's still like 25 open programs that students are available to, go and apply for. We do hire on a rolling basis, so that means like first come, first serve. There may be like fewer positions available now, but there are definitely open positions. That's just to give you an idea that people are still hiring during this time. So don't feel discouraged that, oh, it's coronavirus time, I am not going to be able to get a job. That's not true. You will be able to. And the students that we have at the Huntsman School are the best students on earth. So, you'll get a job. But something to add to that is be flexible when it comes to the job search. I talked to a lot of students that think that it would be really cool to get a job in New York or LA or London or something. But then, they're like, but like, it kind of scares me. I'm a little nervous about that. That fear never goes away until you actually get there. I always wanted to live in New York City, and like the week before moving out for my internship, I was about ready to call it off because I was so scared. So something I would tell students is like, be adventurous, be brave, be excited if you want to go to these different places. And the more flexible you are with your job location, the easier it's probably going to be to find a position. Especially a company like JP Morgan, our office in Salt Lake City is much smaller compared to New York or Chicago or different areas. So definitely be excited, be brave to go to these different places and to take on a challenging job. Getting out of your comfort zone is going to be the best way for you to grow and to learn. And then finally, one other thing I would add, and I've seen a lot of professionals kind of giving this tip to students, is that we all understand that we're in kind of a negative time right now. So you don't need to bring that negativity when you're on a call with someone or when you're talking to someone. I've been on a few calls where I could just tell the other person only wanted to gripe and talk about like how bad things are, and it really changes the mood of your meeting with someone. So something that I've liked to do whenever I start talking with someone is I ask someone like, what are the new or fun skills that you've learned or started working on since coronavirus, since the pandemic and quarantine started. That way, like, I mean, you're still acknowledging what's going on, but the focus is on something positive, something fun. And kind of a fun story I have with this is a virtual coffee chat that I set up with someone at JP Morgan about 2 months ago. I led with that question, and she told me all about how she's gotten into baking sourdough bread, which is something I've always wanted to do. So she actually convinced me to start my own sourdough starter and start getting into that. And now, a few months later, we have chats every couple of weeks saying, oh, what did you bake last week? Like, how'd it go? All that. So, it's just like a fun thing to kind of bring up. And it was a positive thing to discuss, that came from quarantine. So, just again, when you're approaching networking and different things, be positive. We all understand it's a negative time, but there's something good and something positive that you can find in that. So, and then just last thing I will reiterate is, again, we are here for the students. I am here for the students. I would love it if I could go to bed tonight and see 50 messages on LinkedIn from students that want to talk to me. And I promise you, I would set up time with all 50 of you individually. That's how much we care about the Huntsman students. That's how much we want you guys to succeed. So please reach out. We are happy to help.
I really hope that our students take you up on that offer.
I hope so too.
That's very generous of you, and you have been very generous with your time. Part of the reason we asked you to do this, you're a masterful networker. I also want to mention one thing that you talked about, practicing the higher view. We have sent a Canvas course to every student in Huntsman School.
Wow.
That allows them, that has a link to do their own recording of higher view, just kind of an elevator pitch on higher view.
That's awesome. That's great.
And so,
And it'll be
hopefully
huge.
if they're watching this right now, if they haven't done that yet, go and do that. We do have a few questions for
Great.
you.
Cool.
And this is kind of a two-part question, but how do you deal with the awkwardness of networking? So maybe let's start with that. It sometimes can be a little awkward to reach out to someone that you've never met before.
Yeah. Nate says sometimes, I say always. I feel like every time I've tried to reach out to either a stranger or someone I don't know really well, it kind of always is a little bit awkward. There's a few things that I think you can do. One thing that's helped me is I've changed my attitude a little bit. I always went in saying like, that person's a master networker and I'm going to be feeling awkward and it's just going to be bad. 9 times out of 10, the person you're talking to is also feeling awkward. So, if that helps, you're kind of coming in on common ground. Like, um, you know, everyone knows that kind of approaching that's going to be a little awkward. Another thing that I've done to kind of get over that is just to kind of start talking, show interest in them as soon as you can right off the bat. That's why one of the things I love to ask people is like, what new activities have you been doing during quarantine? Because that's a great opportunity to kind of break the ice for them to start talking about themselves, because everyone loves talking about themselves. And, for you to kind of get to know them and to, transition into a new conversation.
And this kind of goes along with it. Another question was, how do you make sure that you're sincere and genuine? You don't, I think students are afraid to come off as ingenuine and insincere when they're networking.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So a couple of things here. Again, this may sound like common sense, but I've struggled with it. I think a lot of students have struggled with it. When you're networking with someone, just be honest. Okay. Like, you don't need to, a lot of students may feel like they need to embellish things that they've done. When we're networking with you as professionals, we just want to hear who you are. If you've never worked a day in your life and you're a junior in college, that's fine. Okay. Like, like it's always great to have other experiences and stuff, but like, we don't expect you to be a perfect professional now. So don't pretend like you have done all of these other things if you haven't. So it definitely comes across as more sincere when we can tell you're not trying to embellish and you're just telling us about yourself. And then another thing is whenever I approach networking and even interviewing, the conversation is really almost like storytelling a little bit. Especially when you're talking about yourself and things that you've done. It's like telling a story and communicating things that you've done in your life and what you hope to do and different things like that. Now, these stories that you tell shouldn't sound robotic and rehearsed, but going into networking and especially interviewing, you should have prepared like a few stories or experiences from your life. That would be a good thing to share, to add to the conversation. And again, this kind of goes back to the just being truthful. Don't feel like you need to embellish it, but just share real true experiences in your life that have led you to where you are, and then the experiences and things you want to have happen in the future to get to where you want to be.
That's great. Love it. One quick question. Someone, when you were talking about LinkedIn, are there any red flags that you should avoid with your LinkedIn profile?
That is a good question. I will again say I am not a professional when it comes to LinkedIn. So I'll say what would be like a red flag to me. But again, take this with a grain of salt. So similar to like Facebook, other profiles, you do have like a profile picture that should be as professional of a photo as you have. Generally like solid background and dressed up. There should not be other people in the photo. It should not be a picture of you on your boating trip to Lake Powell. Yes, I have seen that. So like that would be another thing that I'd add is, just any pictures and things that you show on there being professional. Um, there have been a few that I've seen, like when you're on LinkedIn, you'll put like dates that you worked in places or dates that you did certain activities. Um, and one thing I've seen is like, I've seen 20-year-old people's profiles and them saying that they were doing activities back in like 2005. And I'm like, okay, so you were like 10. um, and like that's kind of a red flag if you're sharing things from back when LinkedIn wasn't even a thing. It's kind of like, okay, like, was that actually an activity you did? Or are you just trying to put stuff in your profile? And that's why I say don't put everything. When you try to put everything, people are going to look at it and find a bunch of red flags of like, that doesn't need to be on there. Don't love this. But
Awesome.
one thing, sorry, Nate, I do want to just add one thing on there. I've talked a lot about how LinkedIn is a professional, profile and stuff. I should caveat that and say not everything on there needs to be you worked at a company or you did a service project or you speak French and stuff. One of my friends, I actually just connected with him this morning, has as one of his honors as being a finisher of the Boston Marathon. And I read that and I was like, okay, that's actually awesome. Like, I think that's definitely a great thing to put on there because it shows your diversity, it shows your interests in different things, and something that you're proud of and something he definitely worked for. So, I think things like that can add to your LinkedIn profile. Just want to add that in.
Yeah, I like that. We are over time, but I did have one more question that I feel like it would be beneficial to the students. They're going to be doing a lot of info sessions this year. Like you said, a lot of these companies are doing virtual info sessions.
Mhm.
There's going to be a lot of students on there, maybe from multiple schools. What's the best way to follow up with an employer or a company after one of those info sessions?
Yeah, great question. So it will depend a little bit on kind of the channel or like the way that the info session is set up. Obviously, it'd be difficult if it's an info session with like 500 other people to really get one-on-one time with the recruiter. So what I'd say, one, if it is possible for you to get one-on-one time with the recruiter, you should try to introduce yourself. You should get a contact info for them, and you approach it just by saying, hey, if I have any other questions, would it be all right for me to reach out to you? And what would be the best method for me to do that? If it is a larger info session, you can't have that one-on-one time, I would say most of the time the recruiter themselves will offer that method of contact. If they do not, I would say there will for sure be some type of email. It may be like one of those machine accepting emails, but you can send one to them and say, hey, I was on this info session with so-and-so. I would love to reach out and ask a few other questions. So actually, great point that Nate mentions there. Whenever you're on those info sessions, make sure you get the name of the person who's running it. That way you're able to reference it and say, oh, I was on a call with Luke and this is what he talked about. I'd love to ask him other questions and so forth.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Scott. And I will put that invitation out again, that look Scott up on LinkedIn and connect with him, send him a message.
Absolutely.
This has been super valuable. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us.
Thank you. It's great to talk to Huntsman students. Like, seriously, you guys are the best. So excited to get more of you, out in the world and hopefully at JP Morgan too. So
thank you.
Cool.